Alright, YouTube, what I predicted would happen 3 years ago, and I think some of you may remember when I noted this trend was happening, has finally come to fruition in the right wing, especially the evangelical right wing. It has happened and my prediction has come true 3 years after the fact. I told you all 3 years ago that I was noticing a trend among Christians, and this is on chat rooms, forums, everything, that Christians had begun to refer to themselves as, we're not a religion, we're followers of Jesus. It's a philosophy, it's a life philosophy, it's not a religion. Going to great lengths to try to say that Christianity isn't actually a religion. Of course, it is. It follows all the tenets of a religion. We know that. It's fairly well understood. They've started to use this system because they're trying to legitimize themselves, because they see that society is tired of overt Christian gobbledygook in the public square constantly. People are tired of nativity scenes in courtrooms and classrooms. We're tired of children being made to memorize religious nonsense in school. They see that people are starting to wake up to the fact that, yeah, by the way, the founders didn't just mean, yeah, we're going to all be Christians. Guess what? We were based on secular law. So they're trying to legitimize themselves by saying, but Christianity isn't a religion. Now, what just happened tonight? Those of you watching Fox News, I watch it because I like to know my enemy. Bill O'Reilly, of course, famously far right wing, makes David Duke look like a leftist, comes out and says the same thing that the other Christians have been saying for some time now. Christianity is not a religion. It's a philosophy. It's a way of life. These damn leftists always trying to take religion out of the schools and out of the courts and out of the public square. I hate to say I told you so, but I did. I said that 3 years ago that this would happen. So now we see the Christians have finally come to the conclusion, and any rational, halfway intelligent individual could have told you this a decade ago. They've come to the final conclusion. They're losing the internet war. They're losing the war on the ground. They're losing on the internet. They're losing in the church. They're losing in the street. They're losing everywhere. They're losing to secularity. Because this, and goes further with Bill O'Reilly saying, this country was based on Judeo-Christian philosophy. Well, actually, no. It was based on Greco-Roman philosophy that predates Christianity by centuries. And you know that if you studied history, but the people watching Fox News, they're all generally, for the most part, they're all Christians, so they're not going to care. They're just going to take Bill O'Reilly at his word and swallow the Kool-Aid, so to speak. Why do you think separation of church and state exists? Oh, well, I don't know. Well, it was to keep the Protestants and the Catholics from being at each other's throats. No, it was actually to keep people in general from one another's throats. And because they realized, because they remembered England, that yeah, that doesn't work. But now, suddenly Christianity is a philosophy. It's not a religion anymore. Oh, well, I can't be anti-Christian anymore. Because despite the fact that its beliefs are nonsense, and despite the fact that the Bible is historically completely useless, and despite the fact that basically every other word out of the mouth of a preacher, pastor, or priest is a complete lie, now it's a philosophy. So I'm just going to go along my merry atheistic way. Because suddenly their church is actually a philosophical school. It's a temple to secular knowledge. This is completely bogus. And the plan for them is this. They're rattling their swords because they see right now they see an epic opportunity. They've been casting the terrible black Muslim liberal card on Obama. And they realize the Tea Partiers and the far-right individuals are frothing mad because they thought they had the election in the bag. I read reams and reams of comments on YouTube from conservatives before the election saying, Romney's going to win by a landslide, the great white hope. He's going to score one for the Christians, score one for the white man, despite the fact that he's Mormon, which was hilarious. I read reams and reams of these comments, and I politely replied on them, by the way, he's not going to win. Nobody believed me, but I knew that I was right, just like I was right in my prediction that yes, the Christians will start to proclaim themselves not a religion. Well, here's my idea. You don't want to be a religion? That's just fine. We'll strip your churches of their tax-exempt status because they're not religious. They're not religious buildings. They're not religious organizations. It's a philosophical school. It's like a college or a university. Pay up. We're in debt right now. Help us pay. You've got hundreds of thousands of pastors and priests who live a tax-free lifestyle. You've got people like Bob Larson and Billy Graham and all the other Billies, because for some reason every other preacher's name is Billy or William. You've got all these people here, they're tax-free. You've got all these land holdings, especially for the Catholics and for the Southern Pentecostals. They're tax-free. The churches are tax-free. Their resorts are tax-free. They've got hospitals built. They've got businesses. They've got all these things, and all they've got to do is say, this is part of our religious organization. You can't tax us. Millions of acres of land that's not taxed. Millions of buildings that aren't taxed. Millions of individuals that pay no taxes. So if you want to be philosophical individuals rather than religious individuals, that's perfectly fine. Pay your damn fair share. And I would say the same to the Muslims, to the Jews, to the Satanists, to everyone else. Let's all do our fair share of work. If you want to have a church, or a temple, or a synagogue, or a mosque, or whatever else you want to term your special little building, where you go to read lies every Sunday, or Monday, or Tuesday, or whatever other day you worship, where you go to celebrate your holidays by lighting candles and hanging trees upside down, hanging from the ceiling by your balls like a bat, go ahead and do that, but pay taxes on it. But here's the irony, is that I predicted this would happen. And again, some of the Christians didn't believe me either. I told them, I said, you watch. You're correct. You're referring to yourself as a member of the Christian religion. You understand, because it is. It's common sense. It is a religion. It fits every definition of a religion. There are different denominations. There are different sects within Christianity. But that's like saying that Islam isn't a religion because there are multiple groups within Islam. That's like saying that because there are Shaivaists and other groups within Hinduism, that Hinduism isn't a religion. Thus, basically what you're saying, any group that has a moral philosophy or teaching behind it, which has at least two different denominations, can't be a religion. Do you see the problem with this? All the mainstream religions on earth have multiple it's cold out here. Denominations. That's a problem. By that token, the only religions that really... Scientology, Raelianism, these little cult groups that have less than 100,000 members, those are, I guess, religions. And Christianity and Islam and Judaism and Hinduism and all these big ones, they're just philosophies. And that's ridiculous, because they're not philosophies. There's a philosophy behind them. Ironically, and this, I'm hoping it comes and bites them on the ass, because reasonable individuals will look at them saying that Christianity is a philosophy and say, well, all the atheists and agnostics have been saying for quite some time now Jesus was a philosopher. Jesus was a teacher. Or that he just didn't exist, but there's still a philosophy behind it somewhere that was dreamt up by someone. But he's not the Son of God. Well, here's Bill O'Reilly. He's saying Christianity is a philosophy. He's not talking... Apparently, the worship of a dead carpenter no longer fits the bill of a religion. Does it have to be kookier than that? Does he have to be a literal zombie carpenter? Does he have to have 3 eyes? Does he have to descend out of space in a giant iron wheel and start sucking up people to take back to his home world of Korg? It doesn't make any sense. It's madness, to tell the truth. It's lunacy. They don't understand the irony of what they're saying. But anyway, I predicted this would happen. And it's going to continue happening. And you really could see it. If you went to any Christian chat rooms or forums, you could see them start to debate the atheists like that, because their reason for doing that was they were trying to stress the differences, because there aren't that many differences between Christianity and Islam. And Islam's the big one that's coming onto their forums and chat rooms and their websites right now to debate with them. You see it, there are 5 or 6 Muslims that come every single day to the ICQ Christianity chat room to proselytize and to spam Quranic verses. They realize that this is a threat, and they realize there's a big problem, because when the Muslims claim that Christianity and Islam are very similar, they're actually right. They're not wrong in those claims. The Christians are terrified of this, because they realize that some younger individuals were starting to become Muslims because they understood that the differences weren't there. So their reaction, and I'll point out another Islamic-driven thing in a minute. Their reaction was simply to say, we're not a religion. Islam's a religion. We're not. We're a way of life. We're a philosophy. Look at all these wonderful little groups, because still, the Western mind doesn't understand, because 99% of the Muslims who have access to the internet are Sunnis, that there are other groups within Islam. See, here's the thing. The Muslim world has essentially fucked itself in the ass in the face of the Christians by limiting and censoring their populations, except for a few Sunni countries. The Turks, they go on the internet all the time. The Pakistanis, some of the Saudis and the Egyptian individuals and the Tunisians, but they're all Sunnis. That's the problem. So to the West, it looks like there's only one Islam. That's the other problem. So they're a religion because all Muslims are the same. But Christianity, look, there's Catholics and Orthodoxy and Pentecostal and Baptist and Mormons, and they're kind of Christian, and all these other groups. We voted for Romney, so Mormonism gets to be honorarily Christian now. The other thing, this will blow you out of the water. You know all these conspiracy theories talking about Jews? And it's really ironic. You'd think that Nazi groups and white supremacy groups would hate Islam. In a way, they almost have a respect for it because it's so violent and warlike. It reminds them of their barbarian ancestry. They don't necessarily like their race or their religion in general, but they like the principle behind it. Guess where all of these conspiracies came from? They came from Islamic forums. I traced them back to the late 90s. It goes back beyond that. It goes back beyond the existence of groups like Stormfront that are heavily on the internet at any given time. The Muslims desperately want to attack the Christians, and the Christians desperately want to attack the Muslims. And Bill O'Reilly sits there because he's clueless. It's obvious he's too old to understand how the internet works. He's just getting this information from younger people who flock around him and feed him the information so he can get angry about it. He doesn't have a clue what's going on. Ironically, he's being manipulated by the same Muslims that he decried during all the years of the Iraq War until the minute Bush left office. Then suddenly he was a peace hawk. I mean, a peace dove. Peace hawk. Chicken hawk is more like it in the first 8 years. Bush is in, well, we'll go kill some Muslims. Obama gets in, all of a sudden, we got to come home. This is a terrible war. So many young lives lost. You look at this, he's just a complete hypocrite, but he's also completely fooled. The sort of Islamic influence into his way of thinking is hilarious, considering he was so anti-Islamic for so long there. I mean, you practically expected him to come on in a turban and a robe, shouting in fake Islamic, and then suddenly stand up with a pair of fire extinguishers made to look like bombs and start pressing buttons. The man's a lunatic. And if you look at the old clip, and just for fun, I'll put it in the description, I'll write it and we'll do it live. The one where he goes completely ballistic because the words aren't showing up on the teleprompter, and first he's looking at the camera, then he goes crazy. And most people have seen this, but for the benefit of those of you who haven't, I'll put it in the description, the link to this video. Bill O'Reilly goes and that's back when he had hair. He goes completely nuts. He starts, fuck this, fuck that, fuck you. At the end, he gets up, he throws his papers off his desk. He's like punching himself in the head. It was the greatest thing I ever saw. But yeah, the Christians have come full circle. Apparently, they're no longer a religion. They're a philosophy. They're just a philosophy that worships a dead carpenter. It's the fact that they're even able to use the internet with their strange way of thinking, I would think that they would look at a computer and assume it was witchcraft. And I'm sure fundamentalists somewhere in Alabama or Mississippi or wherever